He watched it happen for 40 years. Every trick, every trap, every system designed to keep you in that chair 1 hour longer than you planned. He helped build it. He sat in the meetings where they decided you didn't need to know. He approved the comp offers timed to land the moment you were thinking about leaving. He watched a loyal player show every sign of a man in crisis and watched management send him a promotional mailer the following week. And then one day he walked off the floor for the last time and he started talking. Hi, my name is Justin and this is Vegas Untold. Picture a casino floor on a Tuesday afternoon in 1994, not a Friday night, not a holiday weekend, a Tuesday. A man has been sitting at the same blackjack table for 9 hours. He came in at noon. It is now approaching 9 in the evening. His jacket is draped over the chair. His drink has been refilled so many times, he has lost count. He is down considerably more than he planned to spend. And every single person on that floor with any authority over that situation knows it. The pit supervisor knows, the floor manager knows, the cocktail waitress who has been servicing his table every 23 minutes knows, the surveillance camera above him has been tracking his behavior since hour 4, flagging the shift in body language that separates someone having a bad day from someone who needs to stop. Nobody taps him on the shoulder, nobody says the words, because the system that man is sitting inside was not designed to say those words. To understand how that system got built, you have to go back to where it started, back to the floor itself, back to the people who worked it. In 1983, Las Vegas was a different city, not better in every way, not cleaner, not safer. Old Vegas had its own problems, and most of them were wearing expensive suits. But the casino floor had a logic to it that made a certain kind of sense. You came in, you gambled, the house took its percentage over time. That was the deal, understood by everyone. And in exchange for that percentage, the casino gave you something back that was genuinely worth having. Real beef in the buffet, rooms you could actually afford, table minimums that let a regular person play for 3 hours on a reasonable bankroll without feeling like he'd financed a small aircraft. Back when the comp was a steak dinner, not a $12 credit on a $400 resort fee. The people who worked those floors had come up through the ranks the old-fashioned way. Dealers who had been dealing since Eisenhower, pit bosses who could read a table from 30 feet away without looking at a camera feed. Hosts who actually knew your name because they had met you, not because it was loaded into a loyalty app. That was the world a young dealer walked into in 1983, and what he found behind that table would take 40 years to fully say out loud. The floor had its own language in those years. Every casino did. You learned it the way you learned any language, slowly, by watching, by making small mistakes, and being corrected before you made large ones. The old dealers taught you. Men who had been standing behind a shoe since before Kennedy. Men who had dealt to the Rat Pack not because it made for a good story, but because it was a Tuesday and somebody had to deal to Frank Sinatra. They taught you the mechanics. They also taught you the things that never appeared in any training manual. How to read a table without looking like you were reading it. How to recognize the difference between a player having a bad run and a player who is going to keep coming back regardless. How to keep a floor moving smoothly without making anyone feel rushed. How to be invisible in exactly the way a good referee is invisible, present, attentive, and entirely unobtrusive. These were not cynical skills, they were professional ones. There was genuine craft in the work. The kind of craft that takes years to develop and that the industry quietly abandoned when it decided that a dealer was a cost center rather than a floor asset. Back when a tuxedo meant something more than a dress code. The first thing he learned, the thing nobody puts in the employee handbook, was that dealer theft was everywhere. Not dramatic heists, not organized crime, just the quiet, constant, accepted reality of a dealer palming a chip here, miscalling a hand there, slipping a tip into a pocket before it hit the tray. Everyone knew, everyone tolerated it. The casinos absorbed it the way a landlord absorbs the cost of a slow water leak, not worth fixing entirely, just part of the math. What struck him, watching this as a new dealer, was not the theft itself. It was the logic underneath it. The casino knew its employees were stealing in small amounts and made a calculation. Catching and prosecuting every instance of minor theft would cost more in management time, legal exposure, and floor disruption than simply accepting the loss. That calculation, weigh the cost of addressing something wrong against the cost of absorbing it quietly, would turn out to be the single most important thing you could understand about how a casino actually operates. He would see that same calculation made again and again over the next 4 decades, sometimes about theft, sometimes about something that mattered a great deal more. The floor is not random. That is the sentence that belongs at the beginning of every conversation about casino design, and almost nobody leads with it. Every square foot of a casino floor was designed by someone who studied human psychology for a living, not as a hobby, professionally, with a budget. There are no clocks, you know that, most people know that, but here is what most people do not know. The lighting in a casino is calibrated to mimic mid-afternoon daylight specifically. Not morning light, not evening light, afternoon, the hour when your body feels alert and unhurried. The kind of light that makes your nervous system believe there is still plenty of day left. They are not just hiding the time, they are replacing it with a time of their own choosing. The carpet is loud and deliberately ugly. Clashing patterns, disorienting geometrics, colors that have no business being in the same room. The reason is straightforward. Ugly carpet keeps your eyes up. Eyes up means eyes on machines and tables. Eyes down means a player who is disengaging, a player who is about to remember they were going to get dinner. Nobody in the history of Las Vegas ever decided to stay another hour because the floor tiles were interesting. Then there is the maze. Bill Friedman, a former casino manager who later became an academic, essentially wrote the architectural Bible for casino floor design. His core principle, a player should never be able to see the exit from wherever they are standing. Not blocked, not locked. Just quietly, architecturally invisible. If you have ever found yourself in a casino thinking you know roughly where the door is and then walking for 4 minutes in completely the wrong direction, you were not confused. You were managed. And the free drinks. Let's be honest about the free drinks. The free drinks are the most profitable item on the floor. Alcohol slows decision making. It elevates risk tolerance. It dissolves the mental accounting that keeps a sensible person from reaching back into their pocket a 4th time. A player who has had 3 complimentary cocktails will sit at a machine or a table meaningfully longer than a sober one. The drink is not free. You pay for it one hand at a time. Dealers are trained to do something that never appears in any job description. It is called pace control. And once you understand it, you will not sit at a blackjack table the same way again. A dealer controls the speed of the game. More hands per hour means the house edge compounds faster. The math on each individual hand is identical regardless of pace. The casino's advantage does not change, but the rate at which your money moves toward that advantage accelerates dramatically when a dealer is running efficiently. A dealer running 30% more hands per hour is not cheating anyone. The odds are the same. Your bankroll just runs out faster. Slow dealers are not always being friendly. Sometimes a slow pace is being used deliberately to keep a losing player comfortable. A player who feels rushed thinks about leaving, a player who feels like they are having a nice, unhurried evening at the table stays. There is also the conversation. Dealers learn, formally or informally, to find the thing that keeps a player at the table. Hometowns, sports teams, family stories. It is not a cynical skill. Most dealers are genuine people who enjoy the interaction, but the effect of a warm, engaging dealer on a player who is already losing and probably should leave is not neutral. It keeps them there. There was a player, regular, not a high roller by any definition, who spent 6 extra hours at a table because his dealer kept asking questions about college football. The man said he was leaving approximately 4 times. Each time the dealer asked about the next game on the schedule. Was that manipulation? Decide for yourself, but it worked. Every time. Now, the comp system. If there's one thing that deserves a plain explanation with no softening, it is the comp system. Every time you use a player's card, the casino is tracking something called theoretical loss. Not what you actually lost, what the math says you should have lost based on the game you played, the house edge on that game, your average bet size, and your hours on the floor. The casino then returns a percentage of that theoretical loss to you as complimentary benefits. Industry standard, depending on the property and the era, ran somewhere between 30 and 40% of theoretical loss returned in comps. So if the math determined you should have lost $500, you might receive $150 back in food credit, a room discount, or show tickets. Here is the part they do not put in the brochure. The comp offer is timed. It does not arrive randomly. It does not arrive because a host was in the area and happened to think of you. It arrives when a floor supervisor watching your table notices you are up $200 or $300 and reaching for your chips. The comp offer is a retention tool. It lands at the exact moment a winning player is considering leaving, and it is extraordinarily effective at keeping that player in their seat until the math reasserts itself. A player who accepts a free steak dinner and sits back down to play a little more before eating has, on average, already paid for that dinner several times over before the entree arrives. The free room works the same principle at a larger scale. A free room costs the casino almost nothing. What it buys is an anchor. You are sleeping 20 feet from the casino floor. You wake up and the commute to the tables is shorter than the walk to the elevator. There is no buffer, no transition, no moment of separation that gives you room to think. The hosts who manage these relationships are not your friends, even when they genuinely like you. A casino host's performance is measured by how much their assigned players lose. A host who builds a warm, multi-year friendship with a player who stops gambling is a host with a poor quarterly review. The relationship is real. The financial incentive underneath it is also real. Both things are true simultaneously. If you want to understand where the industry stopped having a legitimate relationship with its players, look at what happened to slot machines. In the mid-1980s, the average slot hold percentage on the Las Vegas Strip ran somewhere around 4 to 5%. That was the house's cut of every dollar wagered over time. By 2024, the Nevada Gaming Control Board was reporting strip slot hold percentages averaging over 8%. Downtown Las Vegas, higher still, penny slots at many major properties, approaching 10%. You are losing, on average, roughly twice as fast at a slot machine today as you would have in 1985. And the machines have never looked better. The screens are wider, the graphics are sharper, the audio engineering is genuinely impressive. There are seats with cushioned backs and cup holders. The experience has been optimized in every direction except the one that would benefit the person sitting in it. The penny slot deserves its own conversation. A penny slot is not a penny. A modern penny slot machine may carry 50, 100, even 200 active pay lines. At a penny per line per spin, a single pull costs anywhere from 50 cents to $2 or more. The penny designation is the most misleading piece of marketing in the gambling industry, and that is a competitive category. Then there is the near miss. Watch a modern slot machine for a few minutes and you will notice something. You seem to be constantly, narrowly missing the jackpot. 2 matching symbols, then a blank, 3 in a row across the screen, then nothing on the critical line. This is not randomness being dramatic. Modern slot machines are computer-controlled systems. They are specifically coded to produce near-miss results at a rate that true randomness would never generate. Near misses trigger nearly the same neurological response as an actual win. They create the sensation of being close, of the machine being warm, of one more spin being the one. One more spin is never the one. That is the entire design. Here is something worth subscribing for, because the next story we are telling is the one Vegas spent decades burying. Hit the subscribe button now and you will get it the day it drops. The conversation that never happened, the one that should have, was about problem gambling. The industry knew, not in the vague abstract way you might assume, in the specific way, in the way that comes from sitting in management meetings where the subject came up not as a human welfare concern, but as a liability question. The framing was never, how do we identify people who are being harmed and help them? The framing was, how do we manage our exposure if a problem gambler sues us or attracts regulatory attention? There is a meaningful difference between those two conversations. One of them was the conversation that happened. One of them was not. Self-exclusion lists exist today. That is real progress and it should be acknowledged. But for most of the industry's modern history, a player in crisis who wanted to keep gambling encountered almost no institutional resistance. Floor staff were not trained to intervene. They were trained to manage the experience and maintain revenue. Those two objectives are not compatible when someone is at a machine at 4 a.m. and the slot balance just dropped below what they came in with. The surveillance operation in a major casino is extraordinary. Read that word carefully. Extraordinary. Eye-in-the-sky surveillance by the 1990s could read the denomination on a chip from ceiling height. It could track a specific player's movement across an entire floor. It could identify card counters within a handful of hands based on behavioral patterns before digital systems made that process nearly instantaneous. Today, the surveillance floor of a major strip property is effectively a real-time artificial intelligence system monitoring every square foot simultaneously. That technology knew the man at that Tuesday afternoon blackjack table had been there for 9 hours. It could see the shift in his posture. It had more information about what was happening on that floor than any player has ever had access to. And the primary application of that information was protecting casino assets and identifying cheats, not protecting the player sitting in front of a machine who, by any observable measure, needed someone to say it was time to go home. Think about what that means for a moment. The same system that can identify a card counter from behavioral patterns within a handful of hands, the same technology that will have security at your elbow before you have finished your drink if they suspect you are gaining an edge. That same system can watch a person in obvious distress for hours without triggering any intervention protocol whatsoever, because the intervention protocol was never built. The architecture of protection on a casino floor runs in one direction only. The house protects itself. The player protects themselves or does not get protected. That asymmetry does not happen by accident. It is the accumulated result of decades of decisions made in conference rooms by people who framed every question about player welfare as a question about liability management. The question was never, what do we owe the people who walk through these doors? The question was always, what is the minimum we are legally required to do? There was a player, regular, not a whale by any definition. A middle management came 4 times a year, same host every visit. His host knew the names of his children, called on his birthday, knew his wedding anniversary, remembered what he drank. One year, this player had a rough run. Lost more than he should have, started showing signs, arriving agitated, borrowing to fund his sessions, missing shifts at work. His host flagged it internally. Management sent him a promotional mailer the following week, a coupon for a discounted room and $25 in free play. That is not the story of a bad person making a bad decision. That is the story of a system doing exactly what it was designed to do. Something else nobody discusses honestly, high rollers are expensive. The casino industry treats its whale relationships the way a struggling restaurant treats the one celebrity who ate there a decade ago. It defines the brand, it feeds the mythology, but the actual economics of servicing a genuine high roller, private aviation, penthouse suites, around-the-clock personal hosts, gourmet catering, ground transportation, gifts, entertainment, can run into 6 figures for a single visit, and then that player sits at a baccarat table and runs hot for 2 days because variance does not care about comp budgets. The stable, predictable, unsexy revenue of 10,000 regular players at moderate stakes is financially more reliable than one whale visit with a favorable outcome. The whale story is marketing. It is positioning. It creates an atmosphere of exclusivity that makes regular players feel adjacent to something glamorous. The financial reality behind it is considerably more volatile than the mythology suggests. Now, the old Vegas deal. Something happened to it, and it did not happen by accident. In 1983, the relationship between a casino and its players was built on a specific unspoken exchange. You come in, you gamble. The house wins over time because the math guarantees it. In return, the casino makes the experience genuinely worth having. Good food at a price that made sense. Shows that were actually spectacular. Room rates a regular person could afford without feeling like they needed to file paperwork. Slot hold percentages that gave a lucky player a realistic shot at walking out ahead. Comps that felt generous. Staff who knew your name because they remembered it. Nobody got rich on that model, but everybody kept coming back. For decades, they kept coming back. The first crack appeared when the money changed. When Steve Wynn opened the Mirage in 1989 with junk bond financing and a debt service requirement that reportedly ran close to $1 million a day, he proved something that Wall Street had been waiting to hear. Las Vegas could be financialized. The margins were low. The middle market was expensive to serve. The old deal was leaving money on the table. The Mirage itself was extraordinary, genuinely revolutionary. The problem was not the Mirage. The problem was what the Mirage taught the people writing the checks. By the mid-1990s, publicly traded casino companies were acquiring properties across the Strip. And with public ownership came quarterly earnings calls and shareholder expectations, and a new category of casino executive. Not the old gambling men who came up through the floor, men who came from finance and consulting and who looked at the traditional Vegas operating model and saw inefficiency everywhere they looked. The free parking went first. Then the cheap buffets started getting expensive. The slots tightened. The table minimums crept upward. The comp offers got narrower. The resort fee appeared from nowhere and climbed every year without anyone calling it what it was, a price increase that did not show up in the advertised room rate. Every one of those changes was implemented with an internal justification: cost recovery, margin improvement, revenue optimization. Words that mean nothing to the person from out of town who saved for a year to bring their family to Vegas and found themselves paying more in daily fees than their grandparents paid for the room. What died was trust. The old Vegas deal was built on trust. The casino trusted you to keep coming back. You trusted the casino to give you a fair shake. When one side of that agreement got optimized into oblivion, the trust left with it. Trust once gone does not come back on the strength of a loyalty app notification. Here is what you do with all of it. Set a budget before you walk in, not a loss limit, a budget. The same way you would budget for a concert or a day at an amusement park. That money is entertainment expenditure. It is already spent. The moment you start thinking of it as capital that might come back, the casino owns you. They spent decades engineering that exact thought. Stay away from penny slots. The denomination is misleading, and the hold percentage on a modern video slot running 200 active lines is taking your money faster than almost any other game in the building. If you want to play slots and make your bankroll last, look for older 3-reel machines with a clear single pay line. The complexity of modern video slots exists to obscure how quickly your balance is declining. That complexity is not accidental. If you play blackjack, find a table paying 3 to 2 on a natural. Do not sit at a 6 to 5 table. That single variation is worth approximately 1.5% of every dollar you wager across an evening. Ask what the payout is before you put chips down. If the dealer seems irritated that you asked, leave that table. Know when the comp offer is a gift and when it is a tool. When you are winning and thinking about leaving and a host appears with a dinner reservation, that is not a coincidence. It is a signal. Enjoy the dinner. Cash out first. The players who left Vegas with their dignity, and there were thousands of them over 4 decades, regular people who came and had a good time and went home without a problem, were the ones who decided in advance that the experience was the point. The floor, the energy, the thrill of a few hours at a good table. They walked in knowing the house would win and choosing to enjoy the ride on those exact terms. That kind of player is nearly impossible to exploit because they have already accepted the honest version of the deal. The casino used to meet players halfway on that bargain. Loose enough, cheap enough, generous enough that losing felt like a fair trade for the time well spent. That bargain is mostly gone now. The accountants found the inefficiencies. They eliminated them one by one. Free parking eliminated. Loose slots tightened. Cheap buffets converted into revenue centers or shuttered entirely. Table minimums raised to the point where a person on a normal budget has to make meaningful financial decisions just to sit down at a blackjack game. Resort fees invented from nothing and increased every year without apology. Each change was individually defensible in a spreadsheet. The cumulative effect was the destruction of the thing that made people want to come back. You cannot squeeze loyalty out of a customer base you have been squeezing for a decade. That lesson is currently being relearned on the Strip at significant expense. The locals' casinos are full. The Strip is expensive and increasingly difficult to justify for anyone who is not traveling specifically for conventions or spectacle. The Rat Pack did not lose to bad management. The Rat Pack lost to a quarterly earnings call. There is a buffet that used to exist at a property downtown. Prime rib, real prime rib, not the kind that arrives looking like it had legal representation. Carved at the table, $2.95. That buffet is gone. Replaced by a prix-fixe concept with a $40 cover and an 18% service charge automatically applied before you decide how you feel about the experience. That buffet is not a trivial thing to lose. It was a signal. It said, the house knows you are going to lose over time. And the house thinks that is fair enough that it will feed you well while it happens. When the signal changed, when the buffet became a revenue center instead of a promise, something left the room that has not come back. The exit signs in a casino are always visible. That is a fire code requirement, and there is no getting around it. But they hang above corridors that turn twice before they reach daylight. They shine down on floors laid out so that the distance between where you are standing and where you want to go is always slightly longer than it looks. Find the exit before you need it. That is the piece of advice that took 40 years to learn. And it is the one piece the casino was never going to give you. What was never said on that floor deserved to be said a long time ago. And in Las Vegas, the stories that take the longest to come out are always the ones that mattered most. If you want the stories Vegas spent decades trying to keep quiet, subscribe to Vegas Untold. Every empire has secrets, and some of them are finally ready to talk.